To meet with Bert Martinez.
Marketing consultant Bert Martinez joins us for this one.
Bert Martinez joins us now from the newsroom.
This is
Going to take a lot of hard work. If anyone knows that, it's my guest.
Real jobs are created by private.
His advice has helped millions, including celebrities and politicians.
All right, welcome everybody. Today I'm being joined by Rocco Cozza. Is that correct? Rocco Cozza. Hey, Rocco, I'm glad you're here. I'm excited. Everybody, if you don't know Rocco, let me tell you a little bit about him. Rocco, first of all, is a husband, father of 3, entrepreneur, lawyer, talent manager, motivational speaker, investor, and coach. He grew up in a small town in Western Pennsylvania and is currently resides in the suburbs of Pittsburgh. He is on a mission to inspire others to live their best life and unlock what they have inside. Whether speaking to kids or adults, he's always leads with kindness and believes in treating others with dignity and respect is the way to affect positive change in the world. Rocco, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Truly appreciate it.
You bet. All right, so I got to ask you this. You know, here you are. You're a lawyer, talent manager, obviously father, speaker. So tell us a little bit about your background from lawyer to on a speaker, on a mission to change lives.
Yeah. So my journey, I've been an entrepreneur my entire life, and law school was always something. I never went to law school saying I want to be a lawyer only. It was always a means to an end to me. So I really enjoy the practice of law, but I also like the fact that it leads to other things. And, you know, when I started law school and then I came out to a big firm, I started getting into all these entrepreneurial ventures. Myself, getting involved in businesses. Then when I started my own firm, I started working with a lot of smaller businesses, entrepreneurs, and I saw, the way I structured my practice, I saw a need to help those people. And then over time, I started transforming more from lawyer to these people to coach. They needed someone to kind of help them run their business, figure out how to be an entrepreneur, and how to just be a better business person. That's kind of how the coaching evolved from the law practice. And the speaking really in my mission has always been, I was taught at a very young age the power of kindness. And I just always lived my life that way. As a lawyer, people don't put those two together, unfortunately. So it's counterintuitive. So I just, I started speaking in schools through a couple of organizations here and speaking to kids about entrepreneurship. And I kept seeing this need that kids and, high school kids and middle school kids, they weren't being told how powerful kindness is in life to lead to success. So that's kind of how that whole mission started with me. And it's just been a passion of mine to really spread that message.
Gotcha. All right. So let's talk about this. Okay. So you're doing the lawyer thing, you're doing the coaching and the speaking, which I think it seems like a very natural way to go from a lawyer, entrepreneur. Now you're helping other people. So tell us about your book. What was the inspiration behind your book? And I'm looking at my notes. I don't see the title. I apologize. But tell us a little bit about your book.
Yes. So the book is called The A.L.P.H.A. 5 Keys to Unlocking Your Greatness and Living Your Best Life. And A.L.P.H.A, it's not that term people think. It actually stands for the 5 principles: attitude, leadership, passion, hard work, and accountability.
Oh, I like that.
And it came from, again, I was speaking to, I think it was middle school kids at the time about entrepreneurship. And at the end of the talk, there was a powwow afterwards, and a couple of the kids were asking, what are some of the things that we need to understand, to be successful in life? And I remember that day not having a really clear answer. I had a bunch of stuff I could tell them, but nothing, I never really boiled it down. So I came home that night and just really mind mapped. I just threw a bunch of stuff out and said, what are the things that I know myself with my clients and other successful people, to boil it down to those 3 to 5 things. And that's when I came up with, these are the 5 things that if you understand them and apply them in your life, I believe you can be successful at anything and you can truly live your best life. It's really understanding attitude. what a leader is: having passion, working hard, and being accountable to someone. That's really the 5 things. That's what the book's about. And that was the inspiration of the book, that conversation with those kids.
Yeah, I want to talk about accountability because, first of all, it's one of those weird, I'm saying it's we love-hate relationship that we have with accountability, right? Because first of all, we don't want to be held accountable, especially as adults, right? I mean, how many times when your kids when your kids make you accountable, when somebody else makes you accountable, sometimes depending on who it is, and I'll take the kids. If your kids make you accountable, sometimes we're like, hey, don't you tell me what to do, or some way of saying, don't you hold me accountable? How dare you? Of course, our bosses can hold us accountable. But the reality is, when you look at some of the biggest leaders out there, one of the reasons that they are where they're at is because they have some accountability system in place. It's usually themselves, it's part of being self-disciplined, no doubt, but it's more than that, right? Because there are some people who are what are they? They're like over the top. I mean, they are so hard on themselves. And I'm thinking like somebody like Michael Jordan. I saw an interview with Michael Jordan when he talked about the reason that he is where he's at is because he works harder than anybody else that he knows of, and that he doesn't allow himself any slack. He really holds himself accountable. And I think that, and again, speaking for myself, I think if we were all better at holding each other accountable, we would all have immediately a better life. What's your thought on this?
I 100% agree. That in my mind is the one, especially in the business world. And I've dealt with a lot of large corporations. The most successful ones are the ones where they have layers of accountability built in. That can be accountability to each other, to your boss, to the people that work for you, but you have to find that accountability. I say in the book, look, it can be as simple as having a mentor, having a coach, finding an accountability partner, but someone that you're committing to, saying, I'm going to do this. And then there's consequences if you don't. Someone's going to hold you accountable. The problem is when people lack that accountability, there's no real consequences to their inaction. And that's why people, I believe, meander along through life because they set these goals. Okay, take weight loss. I want to lose 20 pounds. What happens if you don't?
Right.
If you're not holding yourself accountable, if there's not some trigger of accountability there's no real consequence. So there's no real effort put in. That's what I believe. The moment you add that little bit of accountability, it changes everything. And that's what's lacking. When people figure it out, it really can completely flip someone's life.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is you look at really, you can look at any place where accountability is part of the system, and you see people thrive. I mean, you look at the military. You look at you were mentioning students. Any system where there is accountability, people either thrive or they fall out. But bottom line is accountability is one of those things that is so vitally important. And I think that one of the things that I think upsets people, or maybe, I'll say upsets people. And I think one of the problems with accountability is that people don't know how to do it correctly. They don't know how to do it in a nurturing way, right? And so, somebody holds me accountable, and they hurt my feelings. So therefore, I don't want that person anymore holding me accountable. Your spouse can hold you accountable and not make you feel good about it sometimes, right? I mean, our spouses know what buttons to push. And so you were saying, and so all of a sudden they're like holding you accountable, but they're at the same time kind of, driving in that knife a little bit. So how do we hold accountable? How do we hold somebody accountable and at the same time apply this idea of kindness in your book?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. And in a lot of the research I looked at, and I actually just did a TED Talk last month on kindness in business. And in the research I looked at, when you add, in leadership, the most successful organizations, the most profitable companies, the leadership is kind and compassionate, because what that does is people don't like that accountability because they fear consequence, right? When it's been shown and proven, when leaders are fair, kind, and compassionate, those people end up thriving because they're more creative and innovative, because what's happening is that fear of consequences removing. So as a leader, you have to understand that you have to hold your people accountable, but if you treat them with that kindness, dignity, compassion, and respect, you will get better results from those people, because you're taking out that accountability. It's that fear of consequence. We don't want slapped on the wrist. We don't want someone to tell us we're wrong or tell us something we did was bad. There's a different way to do it. When you add kindness to the mix, it changes the outcome. And that's how you take that kindness, add it to the accountability factor in leadership in organizations. And that's how you can transform the culture of a company or a family, any organization, really.
Yeah, no, and I think that's what do you call it? Hitting the nail right on the head. It's holding somebody accountable without making them feel bad or being wrong, right? And I think that's what it is. Tony Robbins talks about some of our two biggest fears is not being loved and not being enough.
Yeah,
and I tend to believe that, because when we're talking about accountability, you look at what, the things that you're talking about is making somebody, doing it wrong would make somebody feel as though they're not enough, or they're not being loved, that they're being judged. All those things are our two biggest fears. And so, man, I don't want to put myself in that position. And I think you're right. You have to do it in a way that delivers a little bit of what do you call it? Kindness with it. It has to be done in a nice way. All right. So tell us about your clients right now. Do you still work with a lot of students? Are you working with a lot of executives? Tell us a little bit about who you work with.
Yeah, it's kind of all over the board, because in the different things I do, in the law practice itself, I work with, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, entrepreneurs, startups, investors. That's my niche right there. From the coaching side, my clients vary. Some of them are younger. Some of them, the majority of those clients are people that are either stuck at a certain point in their life and they can't get to the next level, or stuck in their business and can't get to the next level. I've always been, I like to think, pretty good at taking a step back, seeing the bigger picture, then helping people put the puzzle back together. So that's so the client base is really all over the place. I've been fortunate enough in all of my businesses to be able to pick and choose the clients I want to work with. Like even in my law practice, I'll never take a client over the phone. I need to meet you face to face to make sure we like each other. We trust each other, because every relationship in any business is built on trust, and it's a relationship between two people. So those clients come from, from the students all the way to the high level executives that I've dealt with. So they're all over the board. There's not real one type of client I work with. Gotcha.
All right. So, by the way, I want to kind of dig in this a little bit more, because I love this whole A.L.P.H.A thing. I think it's great acronym, and acronyms help us remember. So A.L.P.H.A is accountability, leadership.
It's attitude, leadership, passion, hard work, and accountability.
Hard work and accountability. There you go. I love that. And so, in fact, I'm going to throw this up here. So one of the other things is leadership. And I think a lot of people are confused about leadership. So I want to talk about that a little bit, because some people think that leadership is kind of bestowed upon you. It's a title, right? And you're not, you're like me, you're not ahead. And I think leadership is more of an action verb, right? Or a verb, right? I mean, people are leaders in their home. People are leaders. Yes, a CEO can be a leader, but so can be a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout or anybody. So give us your thoughts on leadership.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Leadership is not a position. Leadership is the person, is the actions of the person. The mid-level manager of an organization can be the true leader in that organization, because it's the way they act, the way they treat people, the way they see things, the way they encourage others. I believe, one of the biggest tenets I look at from leadership, there's a few, authenticity, vulnerability are all important, having courage. But I always say the biggest and best leaders, they fall on the sword when things go wrong, and they never take credit when things go right. That's what a leader does, because you want to empower your team. You want those people around you to know that they did it. And as a leader, if things go wrong, you take responsibility for that. Yeah. Those are the best leaders. And I feel in a lot of organizations I've been in or worked with, that's lacking, unfortunately. Leaders are very egocentric, or the position. The bad
leaders.
Exactly. And it's really, I look at myself as a leader, I have to be authentic. I'm going to tell you like it is. If I don't know something, I'm not going to pretend I do. I'm very open with who I am as a person, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. I'm very vulnerable. I think you have to have courage as a leader. Be courageous enough to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. It's about who you are as a person and how you treat other people. That's a true leader in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love the idea of not being perfect and being transparent. I think that when you look at leaders that are arrogant, there's not that transparency. Later on, those same people go to great extents to cover up mistakes, and that's when their organization or their life falls apart.
Yeah.
When I was first starting out as a consultant, and I thought I had to know everything, and I was one of those individuals that definitely was afraid to not know the answer. And I was lucky enough to spend time with a gentleman. I don't know if you know him. His name is Dr. Joe Vitale. And so Dr. Joe is probably best known for, he's in the law of attraction space. He's best known for the movie The Secret. And so after hanging around him for a while, here's a guy who has written, like, I don't know, at this point in his life, he had written 40 plus books. Now he's up to 60, but he had no problem saying, I don't know. And he had no problem sharing his mistakes and his flaws, and people just embraced him for that, and made him, more lovable. And that was when I learned exactly what you're talking about, that true leadership allows that person to share their mistakes, their flaws, how they learn how they learned what they learned, because we all learn, ultimately, most of us learn from our mistakes.
Oh, 100%. And to echo what you said, when I came out of law school, I felt the same way. I have to know everything. I looked at these attorneys that were 20 years my senior, like, they know everything. And now that I've been practicing quite a long time, I realize that most of us don't know much. We just know how to find the answer. And I've just gotten very comfortable saying, hey, if I don't know, I don't know. I'll help you find the answer and solve the problem. But I'm not going to BS somebody and tell them I know this, or try and pretend like I'm something I'm not. And that's why I think people gravitate towards me or work with me as a lawyer, because they know I'm not going to do that to them. I'm very upfront. And I had that fear coming out like you did. Like, I got to know everything. Like, these people are so smart. And then it really wasn't. That really wasn't the case.
And that's a great example there. I mean, if you look at our history, I think law is a great example because it's got these layers of appellate courts that you have a couple of attorneys who might argue a case. A judge rules in a certain way. Somebody doesn't like that ruling. They go to the next court, and sometimes they reverse it. Sometimes they affirm it and they explain why. But yeah, I mean, bottom line is, most of us don't know the answers. I think, that's what frustrates the public when they go to a doctor who might be an expert. He's not a generalist, he's an expert, and he still doesn't, he's scratching his head and he's going, I still don't know what's going on. Things change all the time. And so what's true today may not be true tomorrow. And you have to find somebody that you trust will find the answer.
Exactly.
And I think that's important, because it's hard to know everything all the time. What's the old saying? I have forgotten more knowledge than you'll know, or something like that. And that's what happens, right?
No, exactly. I mean, I always joke, that when we take the bar exam as lawyers, that's the only time in my life I'll ever have to know everything about every law. You don't need to know it.
Yeah.
You figure it out, and you got to be. And that's where I think leadership goes wrong. Leaders, the people that are put in positions of leadership, let me say, they feel like they have to know everything. They feel like I've got to this position because people think I know everything, so they pretend. And then when you pull the curtain back, you see that they're just as vulnerable as the rest of us. And unfortunately, at younger stages of my career, like, you feared those leaders because you put them on this pedestal. But when you really break it down, we're all just people that have fear, have vulnerability, have things we're not good at. And the best leaders that relate to people are the ones that open up the curtain and say, hey, this is me. And that makes an organization run so much better, because people say, if that person can be that vulnerable and that open with me, I'm going to do what I can for that person. And that's how organizations run better.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it reminds me of a TED talk that I saw, or a TEDx talk or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was with Dr. Is it Brene Brown, I believe. She talked about the dichotomy of vulnerability, right? That we all fear to be vulnerable and show that we don't know all the answers. So show our mistakes. But when somebody gets up on stage and shares it with us, we don't look at them as weak. We look at them as strong, and we look at them as a leader, and we respect that person. And the quicker we can get over, that fear of sharing our mistakes and our flaws, the better we are as a people, as a society. And I think that anyway, it's a great TED talk. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a great idea.
I've watched it. I've read her books. I know exactly who she is, and that's a powerful message. It's vulnerability, and I was fortunate enough to learn that in my younger years, and just always approach life that way, and that's what's helped me get to where I am. Just being okay, being vulnerable.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so we're talking with Rocco Cozza, and the book is the A.L.P.H.A. Way. I love this. The A.L.P.H.A. Way, the 5 keys to unlocking your greatness and living your best life. So we've talked about accountability. We've talked about leadership. P is for
passion.
Passion. You got to have passion. And I think this is something that, again, is very misunderstood, sometimes overlooked. And certainly, I think it's overlooked in school. The great Oprah Winfrey says, a lot of people have said this, but Oprah Winfrey definitely is one of the people that is known famously for saying, follow your bliss, and the money will come. And I think passion and bliss are kind of intermingled. And I think that most people, school, college, the whole thing behind passion and following your bliss are not taught in a way that makes sense. In fact, I don't think it's taught at all. I'm trying to remember. I've been out of school for a while, and I think that is why so many young people are disenfranchised. They're chasing the wrong dream, thinking that if I get the big car, the big career, the big house, I'm going to be happy. And you and I both know people that have got those things, and they're miserable. So talk about passion. Give me your thoughts on passion.
Yeah, so I believe in passion. There's 2 pieces to it. One, finding passion in your work. Like that's the ultimate. If you can find passion in what you're doing and earn money doing it, that's the best thing you can do. I don't necessarily think you have to always do that. Sometimes I believe you just have to have passion in life. And I had a discussion a few months ago with another gentleman about this topic. We had this discussion. It was really good. He didn't have a passion for his job, but he had a passion in life that his job gave him the means to fuel. And I'm like, that's a great perspective, because not everybody's going to be passionate about being a lawyer, we'll say. But if being the lawyer gives them the means to pursue their passion of helping people, that's different. So it's really, I think what happens with people when we become adults, we lose our creativity, we lose our imagination, so we get stuck in the ruts.
Right.
Routine. I have 3 kids, I have a wife, I have a family to support. So life just flies by.
Yeah.
And work with clients and help them kind of go back to that child, release that creativity, release that imagination, and find something you're passionate about in life. Because when you have something that you're passionate about, that passion tends to ignite other things. But you got to have some level. And that's what I talk about in the book. It's not like, hey, you got to go find your passion and do that and make money. That's great if you can. I'm just trying to get people to put some level of passion in their life, because that would drive other things to happen.
Yeah. And I like the example that you gave about the client who wasn't maybe so passionate about their job, but they used their job as the tool to fuel their passion. And I think that sometimes we miss that, hey, if you're at a job that is taking care of your family and taking care of your financial needs, then congratulations. And if you can take that as a tool to fuel your other passion, and maybe your passion is just, having time with your kids. And I know that there's people who are better at being a family man than, let's say, I am. And they love, they love having a 9-to-5 job, because they can turn it off at 5 o'clock, or 8-to-5 job, and they turn it off at 5 o'clock, and now it's family time, and they spend all their time with their kids and their wife, and that's great. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I love the idea of using your job as a tool for what you are passionate about. And I also agree with you. We all, I think, in order to achieve, I think, true happiness, you have to have something that you're passionate about, and how you harness that passion, maintain it. I think it adds juice to your life, and I think it does. It's a requirement for happiness. I don't think you can be happy without having something that you're passionate about, even if it's just going to Comic-Con and dressing up as your favorite character once or twice a year, right?
And that's the thing. It can be that simple, but
yeah.
I believe if you don't have passion in life, you're merely existing. You're not living. And the point of life is to live. Yeah. And that's what you got to find it. That's why it's important to me. And I put it in my book as one of the 5 keys. Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
I just came into my thought here, my mind here, that I have a friend of ours, and they are passionate about their, I think it's the Cincinnati Reds.
Okay.
I'm sports illiterate, so forgive me if that's not even a team. But anyway, so they travel the country. Yeah. They go and they watch them during their training season or their training time. They got a vacation home, and they go to wherever their home games are at. That's where they have their vacation home. That is passionate, and they live for that team. Yeah, exactly. And again, like you said, it doesn't have to be complicated. It can be very simple, but that's what they live for. All right, so we've talked about what do you call it? We're talking about Alpha, the 5 keys to unlocking your greatness and living your best life, with best-selling author Rocco Cozza. And so we've talked about A, accountability; L, leadership; P, passion; H, this is a kind of a dirty word for some people, hard work. Yep. I'm a big believer in hard work. I think we are all better when we learn how to work hard, but this is something that I think has gotten like a bad rap. Give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, that, again, I put it in the book because people misunderstand what it is. I always tell people, if you think you're working hard, you're probably not. It's, look, to be successful at anything, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. But people overcomplicate. They're always looking for that quick fix, that quick return, that easy way out. I just said, look, you got to put in the effort day in and day out. When the struggles are hard, when you don't want to do it, that's what working hard is. It's easy to get up and be happy and excited and put in that 8-hour, 10-hour day. The hard work comes when you get up and you don't feel well, but there's still stuff you got to do and you push through anyways. That's what it takes to be successful, because the road of entrepreneurship, of success in anything, it's up and down. You got to be able to weather the downs and push through them. And that's what hard work is. Too many people, at least in my experience, they work when it's convenient.
Yes.
It's not, you got to do it when it's not. It's when no one else is watching. That's when it matters. And it's like you said, it's a dirty word because people, they talk about, oh, you got to have balance. And I believe there's no such thing as balance in life.
I don't either.
Whoever
said that was trying to sell something.
No, but it's the truth. It's you got to understand yourself enough to know when you're really out of balance.
Yeah.
You just got to have that self, because I'm never in balance. And I think it boils down to being really focused on what I'm doing in the moment.
Yeah.
If I can do that and then know if I'm getting too far out of whack, like if I'm spending way too much time at work and not enough with my family, to bring myself back on course. And that's, that to me is the more dirty word than hard work. It's balance, because that's being thrown around too much. And and then people talk about wanting to be successful. Well, you have to kind of throw a lot of that balance out the window.
Yeah. Well, and what's interesting to me is when, you start talking to people who are concerned about balance.
Yeah.
You find a lot of people that are guilty. They feel guilty. They're guilt-ridden. They're like, trying to do all this stuff. And I think that you have to get together. If you're married with kids, you have to get together with your spouse and figure out a system that works.
Exactly.
And sometimes, back to hard work, in some cases, you may have to work, an extra few hours that week. It may be a 60, 70-hour work week for the next 2 weeks while you're putting a project together. And there's got to be a system in place. Now, back to what you were saying, if you're constantly working 60, 70 hours a week, then there may be some adjustments there that need to be done or something. But again, when you start studying the great achievers, first of all, balance doesn't exist. Yeah. Second of all, hard work is plentiful. I mean, and it's gut-wrenching. One of my favorite movies, speaking of hard work, is The Cinderella Man with Russell Crowe. Yeah, I mean, he's on the top of the world at the beginning of the movie, and he's got life going on. He's the heavyweight champion or whatever champion he was, and then like that, it's over with. The Great Depression has come in, but the guy understands hard work, and he doesn't. He just gets to it. He puts his nose to the grindstone, and we talked about passion earlier. This guy's passionate about his family. He sees that so clearly, but anytime I feel as though I am, what do you call it? If I'm having a pity party, man, I plug in that Russell Crowe movie, man. I start like, man, I better just step up my game.
Absolutely.
It's all about hard work.
It is.
What do you call it? One of my favorite sayings, I don't know who said this, but is that we all must do, we can do hard things. We can do hard work. We can do hard projects. We can overcome hard obstacles. We can do hard things. And I want to get your take on this. I think that a lot of us have failed to show this younger generation the rewards of hard work, the rewards of pushing through something hard. Give me your thoughts on this.
No, I agree. And I think that, my son, who is 17 now, when he started playing sports at a young age, that's when the participation trophy started. And to me, that is analogous to what you're talking about. Like, they weren't being showed hard work. They were said, if you participate, you get a reward. And I always told him, I said, look, and I wasn't trying to be a mean father. I said, second place is the first loser. I said, that doesn't mean you're a loser. That just means you got outworked. That's what. So you have the chance. If you gave 100% on the field, then that's fine. But if you didn't, you got outworked. And I think you're right. Like that, we have been a bad example. At least my generation. I'm 40 some years old. We've been a bad example to show them the fruits of hard work because we made things easy. Yeah. I'm trying with my son and my two daughters to say to teach them those values of the joys of hard work. That getting the fruits of your labor is an amazing thing. When you work really hard at something and achieve it, it's a great feeling. And the saying I always say, if it has been done, that means it can be done. You just haven't figured out how to do it yet.
Yeah. One of my favorite stories, Will Smith talks about his father, both Will Smith and his brother, I think it was his younger brother, his dad said, "Hey, I need you guys to build this brick wall."
Yeah.
And do you know the story? And so,
No, I didn't.
they're young. I think they were early teens, right? And they've never built a brick wall before, right? And their dad says, "You guys need to build this brick wall. It's got to be like 6 feet tall." And they said, "Dad, what are you, crazy? I mean, we don't know what we're doing." And so he says, "Well, you're going to build this brick wall one brick at a time." And so his dad showed him how to mix the cement, how to put it on the brick and lay the brick down there. And Will Smith says that is something that has changed his entire life because it was hard. They didn't know what they were doing. It took them a year, and I think maybe a year and a half to complete that brick wall. But, anytime he gets stuck, he looks back at that.
Yeah.
And, ultimately he said, it was a life lesson that his dad had the fortitude to apply to them or to give them, because there was no need for the brick wall. It's just his father wanted to keep the boys busy after school, keep them engaged, and this was the thing that he came up with. And anyway, but I think it's a great idea. We all as parents need to create maybe some hard projects just for the sake of building self-esteem and lifelong memories.
Absolutely. And here's the thing too, as parents, what I've learned even recently, now that my son has gotten older, that they're always watching. So they're going to emulate what we do. And if we're not working hard, why should we expect them to work hard in life? So it comes from the top. And in an organization, in a family, me as a father, like if I'm not working hard and showing my kids what it takes to do that and what the benefits are, how can I expect them to do more than me? So you got to set that example.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a great point. All right. So again, today's guest, Rocco Cozza, we're talking about the Alpha Way, 5 keys to unlocking your greatness and living your best life. And I may have gotten the acronym incorrect. So the first one is attitude or accountability?
First A is attitude. Yep. The last A.
Attitude is the most important one. And I kind of, I kind of, what do you call it? Flip the A's around because I started us off on accountability. So let's wrap up and talk about attitude, because again, the old saying, Zig Ziglar used to say, attitude equals altitude. I think this is still true. Yeah, I think that with a good attitude, you can overcome hard things. Life is better when you have a good attitude. So talk about attitude.
Yeah, I believe in all those things. And what I talk about in the book, we're going to have stressful days. We're going to have things that happen. And I believe that my sole goal in life is to have a positive attitude 80% of the time. I give myself that 20% variable. No one's perfect. I never strive to be perfect. I strive to be excellent, which there's a difference. When it comes to attitude, I look at it, I'm still going to have those bad days. I'm still going to have that stress. But every single day, I get the choice when I wake up how I want that day to be. I can wake up and be happy. I can wake up and be mad. There will be days where I wake up and I'm just not feeling it. But I get that choice. And I think this is such a simplistic message that people don't get. We have the choice of how we want to approach. Well, the one thing that changed my life, a book by Jack Canfield, The Success Principles. I read that book in my late 20s. And it's a great book. I reread it every year. But one chapter in that book talks about, we're responsible for everything that happens in our life. Like 100% responsible. And he gives a formula. E plus R equals O. It's the event plus the reaction equals the outcome. And he says in the book, you can always control one of the variables, either the event or the reaction. Therefore, you can always control the outcome. So when it comes to attitude, we control the reaction. Like if something happens, how we react to it can determine the outcome. I can get mad about it or not. It's my choice. If something happens that I can't control, if someone does something to me that I don't like, I can get mad about it and let that fester and cause negativity. Or I can say, it happened, it's over, and move on. It's a choice. Attitude's a choice, but it's the most important choice we make every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, first of all, I love the whole 80-20 rule. I think that's perfect. I mean, look, if we were good 80% of the time, man, our life would be ridiculously good, right? I mean, if we were you know, you apply 80-20 to everything, man. I mean, that's just, you know, you're rocking it. You're in the top 1%, man. I love that. But yeah, I mean, look, attitude is the most important thing. I'm a big believer that attitude is, as I said earlier, is that is where what do you call it? Attitude equals altitude. And I love the whole what is it? E equals
E plus R, event plus reaction equals the outcome.
Yeah, I love that, because sometimes the difference between a successful person or a successful company is that they took that event and they pivoted. Their reaction was the pivot, and it changed the outcome. Elon Musk was on the verge of bankruptcy. He had he had just enough money to do his space program 3 times, and all 3 times it failed. He was, and so everybody's telling him, you're out of money, you're going to go bankrupt, don't do anymore. And of course, he tried that 4th time because he had the right attitude, and the attitude was, I'm fearless. I'm going to do. I know I can make it happen. And he landed that spaceship perfectly. And the next day, he got $1 billion with a B, $1 billion contract from NASA. And of course, not saying that that's the way it's always going to work out for all of us, but I think you have to have a good attitude all the time. Or in your case, I love the 80% of the time, because I think 80% is pretty good. So if you have a good attitude 80% of the time, when that person cuts you off in the freeway, it doesn't ruin your day.
Exactly.
I mean, I know people that have come to my office and they're all pissed off because somebody cut them off or whatever. It's like, dude, life is too short. Start your commute 5 or 10 minutes early. But attitude is so important.
Yeah, and when you react that way to that situation, it doesn't change the fact that it happened. And it's
right.
And I use the 80-20 principle because I think we as people have to give ourselves permission to have that bad day. There's a lot of talk there, like be positive all the time. Positive, that's great, but it's impossible to be positive all the time. But if you think that's what you have to do, it makes matters worse. You give yourself that 20% permission to just have a bad day. Cry if you want to cry. Get mad. Have those human emotions and those feelings. It makes it a lot easier to be positive the rest of the time.
Yeah, I agree totally with that. I think that sometimes we try to deny, like as you said, our human frailties. And sometimes, and I have to say, this is something I learned from, my wife, my 3 daughters, and we've been blessed. We have 5 kids, and I didn't notice it as much when the kids were younger, because kids cry for all different reasons. But as they got older, I realized that sometimes a good cry is what we all need.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And so you find your corner, you get your cry out, and then you can reboot.
Absolutely.
And there's nothing wrong with that. It's
No, I mean, I'll take a good cry. If I watch a movie about a dog and a dog dying or something, like that'll kill me, like that. Yeah. But sometimes you got to feel that, like it's that human emotion that, especially as men, sometimes we feel like we can't do that stuff. We can't cry. We can't, sometimes it feels good to just let it out. Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does, man. I tell you, I had the pleasure of doing an interview with UFC champion Randy Couture.
Okay.
So, the ultimate kind of a macho guy. Not only is he a UFC champion, he's former Marine sergeant. He's in the Expendable movies. He's kind of a macho guy. So we're talking about masculinity. And I said, okay, Randy, what does a real man, in your opinion, look like? And he said exactly the same thing. A real man is not afraid to show his emotions. He's not afraid to be vulnerable. He's not afraid to cry. He says, you have to be able to handle these emotions. And he says, real men do. So I just thought, exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's true. And it's, especially having daughters, I've learned that, even if I start thinking about, them growing older and getting married, like that brings that emotion. It's an emotional thing, and and it's okay to feel it, and it's that vulnerability. I'm okay with it.
Well, and since you mentioned that, so my oldest daughter got married a couple of years ago. I'm still not over it. Okay, this whole thing about giving your daughter away, let me tell you, it's a bunch of crap. I hated it. She's married to a nice guy. No offense to Carver, love you, buddy, but 2 years later, I still cannot believe my daughter is married, and it's gut wrenching. It's 10 times worse than when they go out on their first date, and it's just horrific. Just FYI.
No, thanks. I got a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old, so hopefully I have some years for that, away from that.
It's absolutely. Let me tell you, it's absolutely horrific. But all right, so I love this acronym that you came up with, and I think I have it right now. It's attitude, leadership, passion, hard work, and then accountability. And the book is The Alpha Way, which I love that title. I am jealous. I wish I would have come up with that. The Alpha Way, 5 keys to unlocking your greatness and living your best life, with best-selling author Rocco Cozza. And Rocco, I got to ask you, with a name like Rocco, what is your background there? It seems a bit, Italian? Is that what that is?
I'm 100% Italian, and the reason I was named Rocco. I was born on St. Rocco's Day. August 16th is my birthday, and I was born on the day Elvis Presley died, August 16th, 1977.
Wow.
I have zero musical ability, though, zero musical talent, so he didn't get reincarnated in me.
Well, and that's okay, because August 16th is when the music died. So, a lot of people lost their ability.
Absolutely.
All right, so if somebody wants to connect with you, if somebody wants to get a hold of your book, where can they go?
So you can go to my website. It's just roccocozza.com, ROCCOCOZZA.com. You can pick up the book there. You can get it through Amazon. I'm also very active on social media, on Instagram. Particularly, my username is the Rocco Cozza, all one word.
Yeah, I like that. I had to go with the Bert Martinez, all one words.
Yeah. I love it.
Anyway, man, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. I look forward to catching up with you later. Rocco, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Take care.
You bet.